already in the same process. So the setup for today to get everybody in the same page. When things are going well in your business, it can feel like you need to keep up with that rate of growth in order to succeed. It can feel like you need to leverage the momentum you have into more operations, into more sales, and you need to do that now because this is the moment and that's how busy everything is. The reality is that you can't just keep moving forward without taking a time, a minute, a moment to take a breath and revisit the roots and get the right footing that you need to be able to properly handle that work ahead. The framework for today was meant around leveraging current growth, but the same is true if you're just getting started and responding to, or you're just getting started out and building that initial growth. Having your focus clear around a specific purpose and your own values is key to finding the right path ahead for right now. So as we're going, as we're going through these activities today, I want to ask you to consider how you and your work might benefit from some of this collaboration work. I'd love to be able to work with some folks directly through the fall and winter. I'm not going to hide that part of my own being here today as a benefit for us ORPID members is to potentially fill up some openings that I have in my coaching and my strategic planning schedule. So I'll be sharing some links at the end if anybody is interested in more contact, but that is the garbage salesy part out of the way. Garbage salesy part because I have the same qualms and hiccups that a lot of other people do. That doesn't mean that we're garbage. Anyways, as we are going through these 3 activities today, these come from my tool belt for collaboration. These tools can be used one-on-one or facilitated between teams and leaders or just amongst teams that are all equals and peers. While we can't look at everyone today, I'm going to be asking shortly if there's anyone who might be willing to step up and be put on the spot. I'm sharing a little bit more about themselves, their business, their purposes, and their goals for scaling up. And you will be the example for the activities that we do today. I have a backup plan if nobody feels up for it, but that it would be the goal that somebody wants to step up. So let me give you an idea of what that's going to look like getting into there. We're going to start out with a high-level overview of your work, what you're focused on, and specifically those recent successes. I call this in my work, this standalone session is an unclutter session. We're going to do a condensed version of that today, but the whole point of the unclutter session is to recognize that you have too many thoughts in your head to be able to think. And so getting enough of them out to make some room is a valuable start to this process. Then once you've got some room, I want us to look backwards and talk about your core, refresh what your purpose is. We can take an existing purpose or mission from your company. Or build it on ourselves, build it by ourselves if we need to build that purpose right now. But the activity that we're going to do is try to zoom out, asking why we want to do those things, and then to zoom back in by asking how we want to do those things. This exercise is not necessarily to absolutely re-edit things or give the firm, hard answer of where things need to go next, but it gives a broad view of what matters most to you and your business, and then we can pick and choose which parts of it are the things that you actually want to carry forward. The idea is that having this type of insight will let you drive your business forward with confidence in your decisions in the direction that you're going. The last activity that we're going to do today is a very quick one, just whether or not, to see whether or not the things that you're currently offering or the things that you're looking at building off of the current success actually match with the purpose that you've come up with. We all have a lot of great ideas, I assume. Raise your hand if you have great ideas. I got some interaction. I didn't see the hands. I'm just assuming that meant that you're eating. But we all have great ideas. It doesn't always match what our actual purpose is because as business owners, there's a little bit of just make it work. Just find this thing. This is the next one. I can help that person. So why wouldn't I? That's not always the healthiest way to build a business. And so finding out which things are actually aligned with your purpose and your values is the end of our time today. So does anybody feel compelled to be our model today? I've already picked out a couple faces that I could voluntask. My folks that I would voluntask, and this is purely hey, these are familiar faces and also a business-ish that I'm familiar with. Ross or Bridget, do either one of you want to come off mute, or we want to pretend there's a bakery?
Okay,
Yeah,
raise my
sweet.
hand.
Well, thank you, Bridget. Real quick, what do people need to know surface level? Who are you? What's your story? What you doing?
Oh, the top two questions. Who are you and what are you doing here? Can you hear me okay?
Hmm.
Okay. So, hi everybody. I'm Bridget Jackson and I'm the principal and founder of Nexus Public Relations. So, Nexus PR is a one-stop shop of one, and my work basically does good communications work for do-gooders and disruptors in whatever industry that they reside. So I get their messaging out, their mission, vision, and values out if they're nonprofit. Most of my clients are nonprofits, but I'm straddling the other side of the fence to support emerging to medium-sized businesses as well. So that's what I do, and I saw a little bit about why I put a little bit about why I do it in the chat for those who saw.
Yeah, some medium size. Sorry, I am about to share my screen with you. One
Okay.
other piece I want to share is what I call visual note taking.
Okay.
What we're going to be doing now in this unclutter section is kind of brain mapping what it is that you are saying and what you are doing. And I don't want to assume that my interpretations are 100% accurate the whole time.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to share my screen with this window. And so here's some of the little bits that I pulled out from there. That Nexus PR is a one-stop shop of one.
Yep.
Focus is good communication that works for do-gooders. Mostly nonprofits, but some medium-sized, and I'm going to say starting, emerging.
Yes. So my sweet spot is the startup 501(c)(3) if they're a nonprofit or somebody who's an upstart small business like myself that needs people to know who they are and why they are and what they're doing differently for whatever industry or retail offering that they particularly have.
Sure. Do you, in your business, have a mission statement?
Yeah, well, I mean, my mission statement is mostly kind of cut up of like buzzwords or catchphrases. So I bill myself to potential clients as the people storyteller. I basically meet folks where they're at, and I demystify the value proposition behind what people think of when they hire a PR person or a PR firm. You know, a lot of the time when you're hiring in a PR firm or an agency, you're paying a lot of money for what initially to a new person, like a small business or somebody who's never worked with an agency before, sees like very little return. And so I like to do a lot of teachable moments in the work I do with my clients to let them know, look, we could do this little project together, but really what you need is a comm strategy. I can do that and foster the relationships um, with journalists for you. However, if you just want to have someone just do the a la carte stuff and do the socials and get yourself situated with a newsletter for lead gen, I can do that too. That's like hamburger, the quarter pounder with cheese combo is the strategy. Like I show people through that project work, which is usually the entry level with a small business or such. It's kind of like, okay, I've done this little project for you, but you see how much time that we could really have afforded to a strategy to get that small project into bigger facets of why, you're talking about your donor communications. I'm talking from a PR perspective from a nonprofit. Your donor communications, internal comms with your staff. If you're doing new service offerings in the area, how are we getting this out to journalists to talk about how your mission is aligned with new things that you want the community to be aware about? Um, yeah, sorry, that's a lot.
No, no sorries at all. You
Hmm.
you you put some of this in the chat box, but
Mhm.
why did you start this work?
Similar to what I thought I heard someone else say earlier, is just that, I did it out of necessity, not being paid or appreciated for the work that I did. I worked in affordable housing and community development for 10 years for a federally funded nonprofit. And at the end of my tenure there, I was basically being paid six figures to write my boss's emails. I hadn't done press releases or journalist relationships for a very long time. I was stagnant and basically atrophying my skills. And then, when that organization decided my salary and was no longer worth paying, and my services were no longer needed, they cut me off. So I had, coming back into the workforce after not looking for a job for 10 years, I was facing some new isms like ageism and, well, skillsism, I guess you could say, you know, not kind of keeping up with things to up level what I was doing in this current century, if you will. So this was an opportunity for me to learn and also discern, right? So I could figure out what I wanted to do with my next step because this is my retirement. This is my act two. So um, these things are important to me that if I'm going to do something with the rest of my career usability, well, darn it, I'm going to do something I want to do, you know, while I still can.
Hmm. And so let me ask, what is the thing that keeps you here? Obviously, being able to refresh those skills and feeling a bit
Sure.
less stagnant and be working for yourself are things. But
Yeah. Um, for those who know, like I moved here from Southern California a little under a year ago, and the nonprofit and small business landscape in Orange County, California, for a woman of color, for someone who shows up as queer as I do, who shows up in the spaces that I want to support with the types of organizations that I want to work with, um, wasn't really happening for me down there. And because I had foundations in nonprofit um, connections up here, I took a really big leap of faith to, go from a sole proprietorship in California to an LLC in Oregon. And things lined up in my life with the selling of my home and some other life transitions that allowed me to move up here end of last year. And so the landscape of the nonprofit and just getting in touch with people and actually being able to network in a way that I couldn't do down there has really solidified my why as to how I show up and what types of organizations I want to work with, um, and just the ability to walk into a room and just say, "Hey, this is what Nexus Public Relations does. What can we do for you?" You know, we meaning me for now. Hopefully, I expand enough in my business that I can actually add on an associate in the next year or two. But
of
yeah,
course, of course,
uh-huh.
that's a good growth goal.
Yeah,
That actually we'll come back to growth goals again in a moment. But talking about the recent growth, I know that you're relatively new in Portland, and it sounds like relatively new, if I'm remembering correctly, relatively new with Nexus as a whole.
yes. I
But
literally just did my first annual report and submitted it yesterday. Happy
hey,
1 year anniversary to Nexus today.
congratulations, happy birthday.
So,
Um, the question I was going to ask was, what are you most proud of in terms of the recent client work that you've been doing?
wow. Okay. So, took a brand new charitable foundation public last year, introducing them to the uh, Portland, roster of nonprofits through a new charitable foundation that a well-established, I guess you could say, industry association formed a charitable arm, and we took them public. So that's one. Another one, I think, another thing I've been extremely proud of, I suppose, is being able to maintain the four client relationships that I developed while I was still in Southern California and being able to expand upon those networks here and still having the those organizations that are still paying for me value my work even after a capacity grant has been spent. So they're still finding value in the work I do, that they're finding money in the couch cushions to continue to retain me. And one of those clients, my anchor client, is going on 2 years in October. So yeah, I actually was working as a, freelancer before I had the idea to, call myself, hang my shingle out with an LLC and call myself Nexus Public Relations. So yeah, they
Just
came along
leveraging
for
all
the
the
ride.
Yeah, and leveraging all the things that you already know. I think
Yes.
that is an important detail.
Yeah, because all told, I mean, I may have been doing the community development thing and public affairs work in that space for affordable housing for 10 years. But overall, my entire CV, if you will, is between corporate, agency, and nonprofit public relations for the past 25 years.
Hmm. Awesome.
So, yeah, thanks.
My last question for you before we dive into a different activity, actually, before we work on getting a purpose statement framed out,
Okay.
what is unique about the work that you do and the way that you present yourself in the business world?
I think I mentioned this earlier, is that, I am able to, because I have the corporate mind, the agency mind, and the nonprofit mind all in one. I feel like I can meet the individual client where they're at, whether they are a small business, and so their return on investment with me is much different than, let's say, a nonprofit. But also the way that I can interact with multiple levels of personnel, I guess you could say. A CEO, as a nonprofit side, much different interaction than somebody who is an entrepreneur, solopreneur. I can kind of understand one to one. I've dealt with, organizations on the tech side where they were tech startups where they're very A-type, and I need you to answer that email before you wake up. And we're going to a trade show in 3 weeks. I need to get like these three journalists there. Those types of like fast paced to a bit more slow paced, and I don't have to, and also like a lot of the work that I do kind of educates my clients. And I think that's a disruptor because, why let those folks in on what you can sell them? And like I mentioned earlier in some of my, my modus operandi when I'm working with these folks on an entry level project basis where they just go, oh, I have no one to do my social media, because they think of PR and they think of, oh, well, it's social media and I can write a press release on ChatGPT. And I go, yeah, you can do all those things. But if you are in a particular position where you're constantly spinning the wheel and you're just like, okay, I don't understand how this is translating into the value of what I'm bringing into the marketplace, that's where I come in to help you dreamscape that and then shop that to journalists who actually care about what that is rather than just slapping your press release as a news brief in there with no context. Um, those are things that are the true value add behind Nexus, and would I would hope that on a business to business level would keep people engaged with me more than just on the superficial level.
Yeah.
So,
Before we jump onto our
hmm.
first processing of these words, does
Mhm.
anybody have any questions for Bridget or anything to add in the chat? Ross?
So, I mean, I know obviously what public relations is, but could you just describe your average workday to me? Like when you wake up in the morning, when you clock in, what do you do with all your time?
Okay.
What are your tasks?
Yeah. So a lot of my tasks involved in client check-ins. I usually have all of my stand-up meetings with my existing clients, of which currently there are four, um, at the top of the week. So usually all of my stand-up meetings with clients, checking in on them, are done by Wednesday of the week, and they're usually somewhere between, um, early morning. My earliest time is 8 a.m. on Wednesday. Is going to have to change that with what it's a little bit extreme, to like 2 in the afternoon. And that gives me enough time that if there is you know, um, a request of oh, hey, can you get on this? Because, this is something that is within your scope of work, but we need to kind of direct or pivot. Sometimes having those meetings at 4 o'clock is not going to get me where I need to be at end of business day. So it gives me enough time between, early morning to mid-afternoon to actually quickly turn around on a deliverable if necessary. Or when we do things like press releases, one of my larger clients loves to have a committee party on every single sentence that I can muster out on a press release draft. So we have a lot of back and forth, a lot of asynchronous work where there's maybe what's one of my groups? One of my groups has given me access to their ScarePoint site. And so a lot of the repositories for content and photos and things go in there. And that has to do with a lot of social media direct content direction that I'm doing. So that, again, those things are things I do asynchronously throughout the week, but one-on-ones with clients. And then every minute that I have, which again, the slow down part to Brandon's point here would be very helpful to hear, is I am networking constantly. Um, the opposite of, to me, of networking is not working. Every day I follow at least 5 or 6, or PIB included, shameless plug, opportunities to connect in the community with potential clients, whether they be nonprofit or B2B. Last week, I spent a very intentional amount of time going to networking events that were based in co-working centers. So I went to Circle Work and I saw at Social Good Place with Brandon and folks from ORPID. I was at Place to Be for another thing called Women of Impact. I was at Open House Co-working in North Portland, which is a Black-owned, queer-owned networking space. So that was something that was unique to me, and I'm learning all the time. So networking, learning opportunities like this, I find an opportunity to network, it's like always be closing, right? Put that in their brain, always be closing. I hope not to make a complete nuisance of myself at some places. I try not to be too eager to network in places repeatedly. I like to try new stuff all the time. And here in Portland, I could only do this here. The proximity into which in the metro area, I enjoy, getting around. I show up at a lot of nonprofit places beyond the gala. Like I'll go to, like, if I find one thing a week that is like a nonprofit place for me to just show up, see what they're doing, and talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be the executive director. It could be, a program person. Show me what you're up to. I want to learn more about this. So many tabling events I've been to, street fairs. That's my bread and butter. I went to, and then on the B2B side, for those who can make that expenditure, I did go to the international conference for NGLCC. And I'm learning to take what I learned from there to try to pivot those B2B opportunities in a local context, because that was a lot of money that I spent to not to pal around with not just to pal around with ORPID folks, but to network in ways that I go, it's at home, probably. But there's a lot of foundational relationship building that I did there that I thought was interesting. So yeah, sorry,
Absolutely.
that's a lot.
How dare you have a complex business and life?
How dare I? It's just me. I don't have a bunch of people thinking of this stuff for me. Brandon, help me.
Well, some of these
Slow
ideas,
down.
sorry,
Look at all
just to
those
be clear,
stickies.
all of these ideas came out of your head. So
Yes.
start with that.
Yeah.
But my question for you now is, are there 3 or 4, maybe up to 5 of these individual stickies that you would say, like, yep, that is the most important thing. That is my business. That is what I do.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Let me see if I can make here we go, make my screen bigger. Um, yeah, again, doing good communication work for do-gooders and disruptors. That's my big that's my why. Um, and then also helping folks get return for their PR efforts. Um, and then let's see here. Oh, yeah, learning what folks need and how I can make them better for the long-term game, because it's not just a one-shot deal for a trade show if you're, a business to business or something like that. Yeah, did I say 3 or 5? What are we at? Sorry.
That is well, I thought I had done a second one.
Oops.
I've got 1, 2, 3.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Ah, la, la, la,
If
la.
you could only help do-gooders communicate better, helping
Okay.
folks get return for their PR efforts, not just short term and long term. Does
Yep.
that feel inclusive?
Yeah, that's good. Because the do-gooders are also socially conscious businesses, which is another, important thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've done the corporate thing. I worked for the oil and gas industry in which we were poisoning communities, learning about corporate philanthropy. Like I'd rather just quit now and, rely on mutual aid to get by before I do that ever again in a career. The dark side. I've worked the dark side of PR, and I've worked, the positive side too. And this is much more fulfilling for me.
I imagine that telling good stories rather than spinning bad ones is
Yes.
much more fulfilling.
I do, and I didn't touch into this. I do also do the crisis comms, because even in the well-intended spaces of a socially conscious business, mistakes can be made, and
Mm-hmm.
things can be magnified badly if you just say no comment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I can help people get out of jail with that kind of stuff. I just won't put up your bail money.
one moment while I try to turn this into a quick sentence.
Good at this.
Because we are going to take these few that we have and we are going to inspect them. We're going to ask some individual questions, some why is it we want to do this thing. So here is the sentence that I'm going to pull over, and I'm going to move it, also move the screen so we can go over this activity. But here is just a try to make it into one thing. We help socially conscious businesses communicate effectively, learn what they need for long-term growth, and maximize the return for their PR efforts.
Hey, hey.
So then let me ask you, Bridget, why do you do that?
Why do I do that? Because I guess you could say I've worked in the agency side, and I'm just going to take a little sticky excerpt in my head from that experience. Being an account executive, early career, and seeing that when a new business comes in on the client roster, immediately their mid five figure a month retainer would go to source at least 5 people, from the account director who never sees them again after they sign contract, to the account executive, which would have been me, dealing like, is this PR thing right? Did I do this right? Did I say this? Can I get your logo? Down to like coordinators and, you know, copies and emails. And it's almost like going to a law firm if you're dealing with a PR agency. Even if the PR agency is like 3 people, um, you're getting billed for a lot of um, stuff that you're not even sure, when did we do this, and I think the small but mighty shops like mine can kind of cut out a lot of that stuff. But in the cases where they need the extra work, a lot of that foundational networking that I do is preparing for me putting together dynamic teams of strategy aligned and also cost conscious aligned professionals who can put together an RFP to work on a project collaboratively. Um, so, like, if I can subcon people out, maybe I won't have employees in due time, but I might be able to subcon a web designer into a project that doesn't charge an arm and a leg above what I would charge for my own like content development for that same web project.
Yeah.
So, those kind of things. People need everything. They need to do more with less. I'm not saying I'm a low price leader by any means because I got to make money, but um, I know a lot of the BS that you can cut out in a firm's prowess, um, that can be mitigated in the cost of effective public relations work.
Okay.
Yeah.
My Miro just had a little moment, but my
Oh,
follow-up question would be that some of that sounds a little bit like a how. The
okay.
the being able to offer it to them, but I want to go down this path a little further of the
Okay.
we help socially conscious businesses communicate effectively, learn what they need for long-term growth, and maximize the return on their PR efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because when you were an account executive, you were seeing new businesses spending so much money. Why were they spending so much money?
Mm-hmm.
Because people ended up paying for things that they may not have actually been needing. People may have been
Right.
spending money without actually even realizing it. I actually realized I missed one here of the firm needed to support all its staff.
Yes.
So like the firm itself needed to sell that big of a thing in order to work.
Mm-hmm.
Why are there any of these, oops, that we want to go a little bit deeper on the why for? Why are people paying for things that they may not need? Because they don't know.
Yeah.
No one told them.
Mm-hmm.
And we could even go further on that. Like why is it that they don't know?
Um, I think because sometimes, the Google search it's not a one size fit all kind of, I think the keywords that folks are initially searching on will get them the highest paying results because those big firms will pay the most to get
Mhm.
themselves ranked. But I've got some interesting keywords too
Mhm.
for my SEO.
So let's go down this other one here. The why people need everything, why people need to do more with less. Why is that the case right now?
I think because especially in a space of a small business owner, um, they're running the business day to day, and it's almost like it's very reactive. I'm trying to help folks become more proactive about their messaging rather than, uh-oh, like I'm behind on so many key performance indicators and somebody told me I should. A lot of that, like, why is somebody told me I should hire somebody, but I don't know how to do that. Like
Hmm.
and usually when an organization or a small business is looking to me for help, it's because sales are struggling or they're not prepared to present a a new product or service offering. They don't know what trades they should be um, looking into. They did a couple of Google searches and they're completely overwhelmed because Chat GPT can't answer or pitch the press releases that are written for them. So,
I'm gonna come back here a little bit. I think that the
okay.
why, a pretty solid root why of how these,
Mhm.
why you're wanting to do these things is because a lot of people are running in a reactive way, and
Yes.
providing that proactive information sounds really valuable.
Yes.
Are there any other whys that you want to do this? I mean, any like grandiose or
Um,
personal whys?
yeah, I was gonna say, because my work for so long has been underutilized, undervalued, and underpaid. And this is like the first time in any of my career stops along the way as a PR professional that I don't have the imposter syndrome about my why and what I'm bringing to you, the customer. I can confidently say what my hourly rate is and then offer that in a way that's a digestible format for an entry level client that makes them want to say, okay, yeah, let's contract. Let's do business. Or okay, it's not a hard no. I'll never contract with any PR people because you've just proved it for me. But it's a not yet. I actually kind of, I've had a couple of it's the difference. There's hard time sometimes getting qualified leads from a small business person. They don't know what they don't know until I tell them. I go, yes, but by comparison, the price for what I'm offering you is much less than brand X. You know, um, take it or leave it. Because I can't go any lower than this. Not offering the moon exactly. I'm here for a good time, not a long time, but I would like to. But I know in
Hmm.
the meantime, a lot of folks will be coming to me from the small business side as I need you for this, and then not this. I'll call back when I have more
Hmm.
funds for that. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, of course.
But
That's the ongoing relationship with them.
that's life. Yeah, that's relationship
Yeah.
building. But
Yeah.
tell a friend. That's
Mhm.
my hope to refer.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you did start to mention some of the hows as
Yeah.
you're chatting through your whys, but I did pull out a couple of
Thanks.
them. How you might help socially conscious businesses communicate effectively, learn what they need for long-term growth, and maximize the returns on their PR efforts. It sounded
Hmm.
like at some point being able to take on more business through
Yep.
subcontracting, and also I'm going to say that is more capacity, but that's also what I heard that is putting aces in their places.
Yes.
It's not trying to do things that you can't do, but also still being able to offer the things that the clients need.
Absolutely.
I also wanted to call out that one of the hows that you can do this is encouraging proactive um, business choices, we'll say.
Hmm.
How do you do that?
I think that through like the communication strategy discovery period that I might have with a client, some of these things that come out during our discovery sessions, once we've contracted, saying, okay, you want to do a communications calendar. These are my recommendations. Sometimes, and I've seen this with my nonprofit clients in small ways, that it actually helps the client think of some business development opportunities, especially when we come around the time of, oh, what speaking engagements? Do we want to have a speakers bureau? Who on your board of directors is coming from a space where they can speak with authority on the things that are making them excited about being on your board and therefore are your best spokespeople for these types of, because sometimes the ED, especially if they're a founding ED, executive director, They get all in and they go, I got to be the speaker. I have to be the, the bride at every funeral and the bride at every wedding and the corpse at every funeral. Sometimes it's your program staff. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's opportunities where an ED who might not be thinking about business development and staff development might go, oh, my deputy director actually is better at this. Or my program manager, I've never had them. Bridget, can you help me work with them to create talking points that would help them at this particular speaking engagement so that I can actually go on this major donor ask with my fund development director instead of like being at this event that I really should have let go and let my program staff speak, heaven
Yeah.
forbid, so um yeah, finding
I'm
the
going to
right,
actually put in one other here that I
yeah.
think actually is maybe before that. What I heard is that part of the how you do that is um, giving people confidence to make decisions.
Yes.
And I think that what I pull that from even the last couple statements, sharing your expertise and from your experience, helping learning where people are and helping them get unstuck from those moments. A lot of that I think comes from just giving people confidence, and your
Yeah.
expertise must help people feel a lot more grace in that.
Yes, I would say so. And I think one of the positive examples of this was when my anchor client, which is a homeless services provider here in Portland, um, they did not have capacity for a full-time communications person. Hence my addition to their consultant roster to help them get over the hump with the donor communications project in 23, late 23. By the time I was contracted and convinced them that we should talk about strategy with the best use of my time and resources available to them, um, they had decided that they found a rock star through my collaboration with one of their staff. They found a rock star in their part-time um, outreach coordinator person. That is now she has a value add now in a small promotion to include communications in her title. So now we get to still work together and have fun, but at the same time, she's up leveling her skills. And some of the things that I've done to encourage this nonprofit to help her continue to up level her abilities is getting her involved with, opportunities through, I think it's Movement Academy and trainings and me kind of seeding that to the EDs like, hey, there's a great training here, or here's a good organization that so and so should really look into if you have the funds to support her, training there. And that was really beneficial too, because she's getting known now. So that's great. And she really likes what she does.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what I would like to do is zoom out a smidge and see if there's anything from the full exercise here that actually maybe rises to the top. So we help socially conscious businesses communicate effectively, learn what they need for long-term growth, and maximize the return on their efforts. Is there anything I'm going to use this example here because I'm not an imposter. Is there anything here that you're drawn to in terms of like the helping people run in a non-reactive way? Are there any other of these words and pieces that you would want to bring into your purpose right now?
Purpose. Um, I guess I could say, wow, that's done a lot.
Well, this
um,
is again, we've got a big broad picture. So
mhm.
the gut check is, are there any of these stickies or words that you're especially drawn to?
um, that I'm not an imposter. I think the first time that somebody actually was like, hey, yeah, Bridget, that's a really good idea. And I really appreciate how this has worked out for us. Could you continue to work with, like, the first time I got a renewal was
Mm-hmm.
like, what?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not just full of crap here, I actually have a chance to position this to continue to do good work for you. Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah.
Um,
I also
yeah,
I want to just say I heard a bit more passion in your
yeah,
sharing of these two things, and so those
yeah.
might be other pieces that are that I would encourage to maybe draw in as well.
Okay.
Um, but I ask these questions because Now, we have trucked through this. We have not done our own discovery. We've not been able to frame up too many specific things. This is like days of work that we've crammed
Yeah.
in. But the
Whoa.
hope is that everybody is seeing these activities, that getting the ideas out of your head make them less of a ephemeral thing and they become tangible. And you can edit the idea, but when it's not in your head, it can be out there in front of you and a little bit easier to see. So whether it's making lists or journaling or whatever, what I want to do is encourage folks to get ideas out of their head. And then I'm going to come back over here and pull out these pieces of work. Where are the ways that the work you're doing today, the work you want to be doing, are actually connected to these things? So obviously your name didn't need to
Yeah.
come over as well. But being a one-stop shop, I'll do the first one here.
Sure.
Being a one-stop shop of one sounds a lot like not being an imposter because you put the one in there, and I think that
Yeah.
is a huge thing. So many people call themselves a one-stop shop in a solo business, and you never learn that they're all alone. Um, but I think also, what was the other one that stood out to me? That it's about everything. That it's not necessarily about just getting social media done or whatnot. That it really is a bit more inclusive. Good communication works for do-gooders. That comes over as something that's important to you, but this obviously ties in. Oh, it doesn't necessarily tie in to what we said was the purpose. So like that is something that stands out in maybe some of the language that you want to use or the way you want to present yourself is you talk about nonprofits, but if it's not in the purpose, if it's not in the mission, then it might not be there. Do you see any other connections between the work that you do and want to do and these things that seemed to be the most important about those?
Can you move a little bit over to the left again to the orange stickies? Yeah. Let's see here. Meeting folks where they're at.
Uh-huh.
That seems to connect to giving people confidence, encouraging
Mm-hmm.
proactive business choices. Um, I like the confidence because I'm kind of like a trusted, I am an advisor in a lot of ways. And I think the non-imposter, the imposter syndrome that's chipping away with every win that I have with a client's satisfaction with my work kind of grows that
Mm.
confidence level that I have to speak with authority to give those folks like, look, you had this within you all along, Dorothy. You could do this. You got this. As far as because that gives like when people are kind of they're looking to me as like, is this a good thing? Like I'm looking to you, Bridget, because I really think you have the pulse on this. Okay, and it used to be like I had to stop making that face.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, yes, I
Oh,
do.
thank you. I do.
Thank you very much, But yeah, like I mean, like being able to meet folks where they're at, I think having that communicator's gift of gab a little bit, I kind of disarm a lot of people with like I don't come in there with all the answers. Let's
Mm-hmm.
collaborate on this. But, you know, there's always power and humility that I bring where I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure about that today, but let me get back to you. And the get back to you happens quickly because they wanted that answer, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes when we just do like my stand-in check-ins with my, clients, and sometimes it's just let's just talk through it
Yeah.
and, do this whole little Miro board thing in the form of a chat. Because sometimes a lot of my executive directors, God love them, they're not that tech savvy. To do something like
Mm-hmm.
this would break their brains. But
Mm-hmm.
I somehow seem to be able to do that in my head when I speak to them. So,
That's awesome.
it works.
Bridget, thank you for playing this game
Thank you.
today. We didn't have necessarily like specific growth that that we were talking about building off of, but knowing that you're fresh here and also being in PR, it makes sense that a lot
Yeah.
of what we talked about was your messaging and your presentation and how you're showing up in these spaces.
Yes.
Um, do you have any thoughts before we wrap up the activities and I open up for any other Q&A?
I think right now in the space where I'm meeting other small businesses and proving my worth as a, person that could help them, um, I find that when I'm in the B2B side of things, that my website and my presence has to match who they're seeing at that networking thing. This year versus last year, where I didn't have to do it and I had my little piece of crap Squarespace do it yourself looking crazy thing website, I spent a little money to make money. So now I'm sponsoring things. I'm going to events where, I'm proud to give out my website URL because someone else designed it. I actually realize that in some cases the cheap does come out expensive. I think I've missed some opportunities because perhaps maybe my own online presence did not convey my professionalism through what I offer. And so um I'm putting the very, very last finishing touches on my new website. And so I think when I took that to NGLCC and I went to another thing at Open House Co-working here locally, I have at least four business to business size people, not nonprofit related, that said, "Hey, I saw your website," or "Oh yeah, okay." Or somebody actually met me last week and said, "I remember your old one," before we didn't even have that discussion.
Nah.
He said, "I looked you up when I looked. Why does your name look familiar? Oh, I looked you up a couple of months ago. Your website's completely different. Wow. Yeah." Can I? And then he actually went and utilized the form to fill in a discovery call. So before I had the same thing going on for me on my crap website like several months ago, but it only took the new and
Yeah.
improved to show that I feel like business folks, when we're dealing with one another, first thing they do is they go, "What's your URL?" And I'm
Mhm.
like, well, now I don't have to do that. So that imposter thing chips away
Mhm.
a little bit more because now um my URL is I guess it's not
Your message
swoon
is
worthy
clear. Your
yet,
message is
but
concise.
it's getting there. Yeah,
Easier to be
much better.
confident in that.
Correct, correct.
Well, Bridget, thank
So
you again. The whole point of today was to not necessarily break anybody's business or fix anybody's business. Not break, no, like break it through. Anyways,
yeah,
the whole idea was to teach these activities. So the idea
wow.
of getting the thoughts out of your head, typically with a thought partner, it could be your partner, it could be your friend. Record the conversation so that there's a transcript of it and nobody's having to take notes. When you have a purpose, when you think you've gotten that first draft of things, ask deep questions about why, ask deep questions about how, and keep those two things separate. Because when we talk about how we're going to accomplish something, that's not dealing with the wow, the how, that's not dealing with the why. That's very specifically saying, okay, I know my answer. I'm just going to go straight forward. But the whole purpose of this time today was to talk about how to slow down, how to make sure that we are aligned in the actions that we're doing with the values that we have, with the goals we have for our business, for ourselves, and for the community that we're a part of. I do want to open it up now for anybody who has any other questions, either for Bridget and about what we learned in those activities, or about the activities themselves. And I've also shared some information here. If you want to get in touch with me, you can email me, visit my website, or the QR code on the right will take you directly to two of the like ad hoc services that I'm offering now. Individual sessions to help people get uncluttered, and an individual session to help people prioritize how to move forward. But yeah, this is the last few minutes are for everybody. I see a hand.
Hi, I was just listening into sort of Bridget's final comments about it seems like you were veering into the territory of branding when you were talking about your URL, your new website. And as someone who started off my career as a graphic designer and a web designer, I spent probably 5 years working on my branding before I opened my business. I'm so sorry. I have to come back. Someone's knocking on the door. One moment.
Just when we're getting to something good.
Yeah. um, Amalia, I see that you've actually already headed out. Um,
I'll just say that it's been really fun for me to hear your story, Bridget, and I'm gonna reach out to you because I can think of some opportunities for collaboration because I work with some nonprofits and I can see the value of what you do and how you might be able to help them.
oh, sorry, Bridget, we got you muted.
I said, thank you very much, Pete. Did you send me a connection request? I thought I just saw something pop in, but I would love to connect with you. Thank you very much.
Yes, I haven't sent one, but I will
Oh,
now.
okay. That was not a. There was a. I'm sorry. There's a different Peter on this call. So
Okay.
yeah. Thank you. But yeah, I look forward to that. And that's why it's like I find the genuine conversations that I have is so much more valid here for networking, and I can't speak for everyone here, than this phony ass LA Orange County. And the attitudes that prevail is kind of like, well, I don't know you, therefore I don't need to know you, or it's very transactional. Like
Mhm.
I love discovery calls where it doesn't necessarily need to lead to a conversion. Like, because whatever's going to help me learn something else, um, I'm here for it. So, you know, ask me again when I have to pay quarterly taxes in the next, couple of weeks. But
We've got a moment left. Ross, would you like to share more about the branding before opening?
Oh yeah, I was just recently reading some books about brand development, and it seems like nowadays you can't really develop your brand on the fly. You gotta have to come out of the gate with it. And people want to see a values-based brand behind what you're doing. You can't just sell coffee anymore. You can't just sell plants anymore. You gotta have values.
Hmm.
And I'm realizing that I took the time to develop that as part of my brand, but it's always a work in progress because now my customers are telling me more about my brand.
Hmm.
They're filling in the story for me. So, as far as that goes, is that something that you help businesses along with? I'm assuming it is.
yes, yeah, absolutely. And I actually have visited Queer Plants a couple of times in early iterations of the circle work uh, gatherings in the beginning of the year. And so, again, and you are correct. It's like people are just, they're so much more savvy in how they spend and their, disposable income and where they get, and around here, especially where things are sourced matters. And
Hmm.
having, awareness of their why and what makes them feel good about coming to Queer Plants Cafe versus any other, you know, um, place in the neighborhood. Um, I think that those things have a story. And
Hmm.
around the branding part, I also definitely believe it's an evolution. Um, especially as, things expand or, maybe you order, excuse me, maybe you expand to like, other locations or offer different, um, or you have different suppliers that you're actually also making conscious decisions to support those suppliers through the types of, you know, tasty
And
things you have,
And I
those
think
things are
that this
important.
is all tying back to you have those things to help you make those decisions.
Yes.
If you're trying to make decisions without having values set up, if you're trying to make decisions without a mission, without a purpose, without a vision, without whatever corporate sounding thing you want to
Yeah,
say, if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to end up where you thought you were supposed to be.
that's correct.
And you're going to waste money going down that wrong path. And you're going to
Yeah,
try to move too quickly because that's the thing that seemed exciting in the moment. But then there's five things that are exciting in the moment. There's
yeah,
one of those five that might be closer connected to the values and the vision more than the others. That's probably where the focus needs to go. That's
yeah.
a whole separate section.
Oh, yeah.
The moving forward is now that you have what you understand your priorities to be. Now, how do we prioritize those in a way that actually lets them build off of each other, doesn't overwhelm the worker, and actually makes it a bite-sized path to move forward on?
Yep.
We are over in time. I'm happy to stick. Oh, no, there's no sorries here. I am happy to stick around and keep chatting. And honestly, Bridget's introduced themselves pretty well. And so if anybody has any other questions for how Bridget could support, um, feel free to stick around. Otherwise, everybody enjoy the rest of your Tuesdays.
Thanks so much, Brandon, Bridget.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ross. I've actually been meaning to pop over there sometime. My background comes from coffee, and seeing the success that y'all are having, I've been meaning to pop my head in there and reintroduce myself as somebody who might want to chip in and help contribute to some of that growth if you need a hand.
Oh, thank you. I'm sure you're aware that my goal is to franchise my business.
Hmm.
And I'm working with the SBDC. And also I have a mentor from ORPIB, Narwhal Business Strategies as
Oh, that's
well.
awesome.
So I'm really putting in the work.
Awesome. Well, it is showing.
Thank you. Thanks for your time, Brandon.
No, thank you. Enjoy your day.
You too.